You may have heard of the phrase hanging pawns. Well, now we're going to see exactly what that means. Hanging pawns are basically pawns which are side by side, which can't be defended by another pawn. They hang in the air, so to speak. Hanging pawns are very useful in the middle game, especially if they can be pushed forward at the right moment to unleash the energy of all the pieces behind them. Hanging pawns are good for starting an attack. They tend to become weaker as pieces are exchanged, and in the end game can be a positive liability. When you're playing with hanging pawns, you're thinking about keeping the pieces on and starting an attack. You're thinking about advancing the hanging pawns at the right moment. When you're defending against the hanging pawns, you're thinking about attacking them, destabilizing them, forcing exchanges, weakening them as the game goes on. All this leads to very interesting chess, and I'm going to show you a classic game here between two legends of the game. It's between Svetozar Grigoric playing white and Paul Keres playing with the black pieces. And the opening is a Nimzo Indian defence. Bishop b4, a very logical way to play against the queen's pawn, one of black's best defences. Black develops quickly, prepares to castle, and remains with an elastic pawn formation. Black may play d5, black may play c5, black may play b6, or he can do any and all of these things. This is why grandmasters tend to like the black setup. Grigoric plays e3, which is the Rubinstein variation, and black attacks the pawn centre straight away with c5. Again, there are other things he can do. White develops his bishop to d3, and black plays b6. White goes knight f3, and black plays bishop b7. A very logical move, trying to retain control over e4. Now, you may have been asking in the opening phase of the game, why is white blocking in that bishop on c1 by playing e3? Well, this is an opening variation of restrained power. White is hoping to unleash this bishop a little later on with the help of the move e4, or to force black into capturing on d4, in which case the bishop can come out. The Rubinstein variation can work well if black loses control of e4. So with bishop b7, Keres is trying to fix that square. Both sides castle. Bishop comes out to d2. And now with this move, white is introducing the threat of a3. One of the main ideas in the Nimzo Indian is to double the white pawns on c3. So for instance, black, if he wanted to, could have played bishop takes c3. Now both players might have been happy with this little transaction. I mean, this is really a question of taste, whether you take on c3 here or not. But if white ever gets in e4 now, then this bishop on c1 can become very strong. So I think Keres tries to keep the dark square bishop on the board as long as possible here in order to stop that scenario happening, that the dark square bishop of white becomes incredibly powerful. But of course, with the threat of a3, black now decides to change the pawn formation in the centre by taking on d4 and then playing d5. So what he's hoping now is that the bishop has gone to a rather passive square. Grigoric takes on d5, Keres takes on c3, and this is quite an interesting moment in the game. Now if black takes on d5 in this position, and I think he can, if white goes for the win of a pawn here with the tricky knight takes b6, then we get a takes b6, queen takes d2, and suddenly bishop takes f3. And this is not a position which white really should be going for. He's a pawn up, but look at the shattered pawns around his king. And with the excellent rook a5, black is thinking about starting a direct attack. No, that's not what black wants at all. Black could take back with the e-pawn here, but that leaves the bishop on b7 rather blocked in, and I think after knight e5, white's got the freer game. So Keres decides to play bishop takes c3. Grigoric elects to capture with the b-pawn. Black takes on d5 with the queen, and now we get a classical hanging pawn scenario with the white pawns on d4 and c4. So how is this going to pan out? Well, this is already a very difficult position. Black's got to find a good way of bombarding those pawns and fixing them, stopping white from advancing the pawns at the right moment. Again, I should stress that a possible match-winning piece here for white is the dark square bishop. So with bishop c3, Gligoric is already looking to play d5 at the right moment when the power of the bishop is unleashed. Knight b7, Keres thinks he's got it all under control, and white can't really play d5 just yet. So a sensible move is rook e1. Rook a c8, black is massing his forces, and after h3, which kind of prevents black from playing knight g4, black plays rook f d8. And now rook to e3. So this in its own way is an interesting move. I think Gligoric is thinking about, at the right moment, swinging this rook across the third rank, maybe to g3, to try and create some pressure against g7. Moreover, after rook e3, white can bring his queen up behind the rook and maybe bring the other rook across to e1. So all sorts of reasons why rook e3 should be good. And let's not forget, the rook on e3 is now protecting the bishop on d3 against possible jabs by black, such as e5. So rook e3, an all-round good move. Knight h5. Keres must have known that this was a risky move, but it's risk versus reward. He wants to bring that knight into f4 to create some pressure. But this gives white some tactical opportunities. Possibly better was h6 in this position, which is more flexible. It takes away sacrifices on h7. I think this would have been the best chance for black to defend his position. But after knight h5, this is an ideal moment for Gligoric to advance the hanging pawns and unleash his bishop pair against the black king. So now we're going to see the problems that black faces. If he takes on d5, he runs straight into bishop takes h7 check. King takes h7, knight g5. A classical moment for the Greek gift sacrifice. Now clearly after king g8, queen takes h5, queen g6, this is not going to lead to a very nice position for black after takes, and now rook e7. White's got the attack and command of the 7th rank. Running this variation one more time, e takes d5, bishop takes h7, king takes h7, check. If king g6 here, then white has a second crunching blow, knight takes f7. Black's got to take that, we get to take on h5 with check. If queen g6, then rook e7 wins the queen. And if king g8, bishop takes g7. White completely demolishes the black king position. All his pieces are unleashed, and black has no cover for his king. So going back, Keres already faces a difficult defence. So he elects to try and exchange off the bishop on d3, which is a very powerful attacking piece, by playing knight to c5. Knight to g5. Now we see the dubious side to knight h5. The knight's unprotected. Black has to take time out to protect it. And now bishop e2. Forcing the knight back, whereupon white can continue with attacking moves. Queen to d4. And this is not very nice, of course, because the queen and bishop battery on the long diagonal is causing black a lot of strife. Keres sounds the retreat. White swings his queen over to h4. h5, pushing forward. And now the crowning point of the whole combination, really, the beautiful move, bishop g4. That is an excellent move. Pressure is increased on the pawn at e6, and there's no really good way to defend it. For instance, if black defends with his knight here, I think white just lops it off. And then after e takes f5, he's even got knight takes f7. Yes, this is very strong. If queen takes, the rook comes into e7. If king takes, the queen comes in and takes on g6, leaving the black king in ruins. Moreover, after bishop g4, rook e8, white just plays rook a e1, massing his forces critically, and black is again in a hopeless situation. So Keres tried what he thought was the only move here, f5. Gligoric comes in with yet another dynamic move, knight takes e6. And again, what is black to do? All the power of the white pieces has been unleashed, If he takes on g4, we go e7. This is completely crushing. If, as in the game, rook e8, we've got another demolition sacrifice here. Bishop takes h5, and this completely blows black away. Queen h6 by Kiris. Okay, let's just see what happens if he takes on h5. We go check. Black has no cover on the dark squares here, and now queen f7. Going back to bishop takes h5. If rook takes e6, another beautiful blow here. Bishop takes g6, rook takes g6, queen h8 check. The variation is really rather nice. And now this move, rook e7 check, winning the black queen. So all the tactics are working in white's favour here because he's just got better placed pieces. Queen h6 was answered by queen f6, and f4, a last gasp move by queen f7, mate. So a superb example that of how the hanging pawns can be advanced at the right moment to create winning attacks. Just dropping back to rook e3, it goes to show that the defender must approach these positions with great care. Clearly h6 is a big improvement on knight h5, which sowed the seeds of black's downfall.